Hi everyone, Sarah Barnes-Humphrey here with Let's Talk Supply Chain here at Momentum, and I'm just about to talk about a super cool topic, gamification and labor, which is, I know labor is on everybody's mind, and with me to do that is Peter. Peter, welcome, how are you?
Hi, Sarah. I'm good.
Good, why don't you tell everybody who you are and what you do?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Peter Schnorbach. I'm the Senior Director of Product Management, and I have responsibility for the labor component of Manhattan Active Warehouse Management. I've been with Manhattan for about 18 years, and I've been in the supply chain industry for probably 30.
Okay, you've just got me beat. I've been in the industry for about 25 years.
Okay.
Now, I'm excited because you're going to give us an opportunity to look into the latest around gamification, which I think is really interesting to retaining employees. But then we're also going to be talking about labor, and a lot of supply chain professionals teams are thinking about labor shortages. They're thinking about implementing technology. What does that mean to their labor force? So talk to us about the current state of labor management in supply chain. What are the trends that you're seeing?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting because I think we have really seen a dramatic shift over the last 10 years in, how our customers are dealing with labor, right? So number one, even before the pandemic, there was a significant labor shortage going on within the industry. Unemployment continues to be very, very low, so that shortage has not gone away as a result of the pandemic. And in a lot of ways, I think warehousing has become less attractive just because they were the essential employees that had to go to work kind of no matter what during the pandemic. And I think that exposed a problem with, working in the warehousing area. Now, that being said, I think that what the result of that has been is that the leverage has really shifted from the employer to the employee. It used to be that our customers use labor management to track productivity, and if you weren't up to snuff, a couple times a year, you'd sort of get rid of the bottom 5%, bring in some new people, train them, coach them, and get them productive. You can't do that anymore. It's just too hard to find new people. So, the focus has really shifted from measuring productivity to how do I attract, retain, reward, and recognize my good employees. So it's much less about focusing on, the employees who weren't meeting the standards and much more now on focusing on the employees who are.
Or how do we empower them to?
Right, exactly. Yeah, so if you have an employee who's willing to come in every day, you need to make sure that that employee feels valued. If they're not productive, you need to coach them and bring them along and train them. And if they're a good employee, you need to reward and recognize them.
Yeah, I love all of that. Now, part of that, I think, is this not new concept, but I think maybe new to supply chain management of gamification, right?
Right.
So talk to us about how organizations are using it to help power that business performance.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because we have seen so much interest in gamification. We have a large cosmetics, global cosmetics company who is a customer of ours who uses gamification. What they did is, so gamification is a collection of product features that allow you to engage your employees through gamification. What that means is that you can issue challenges to an employee. So it's no different than goals, right? We always had goals for standards in the past, but now we deliver to the employees in the form of a challenge. Like the challenge might be, I need to be at no lower than 95% productivity for the week, or I need to be above 90% utilization, or I need to show up for work every day. And instead of penalizing people for missing those things, what we're doing is if they are successful at a challenge, which could be daily, weekly, monthly, they earn points. And then, what you do with those points is kind of up to the customer, but we've seen customers use them on leaderboards throughout the warehouse. And then this large cosmetics manufacturer, what they did is they did a game that lasted for a month. And what they did is they measured their 28 pickers in their active pick area, and they ranked them 1 through 28 in terms of, what their gap time was. And then they set up a bracket and literally pitted people against each other,
Okay.
so that for each week, for the next 4 weeks, you kind of advance to the next bracket, depending on how good of utilization you have.
Kind of like March Madness?
Exactly. In fact, they called it March Madness.
Oh, they did.
They did, yes. And it was really, really successful. Number one, they brought their gap time from 10% down to 3. So, I mean, there were tangible, real benefits to them. I was at the award ceremony, and all of the employees, even the ones that didn't get a prize, were really fired up about the whole program.
Oh, wow.
That was really cool to see. But the other thing that came out of that I thought was really interesting, an observation that this company made, is they were actually pretty new to introducing active labor to their workforce. And they said that by offering it with the engagement, people, they saw much faster adoption, because people thought it was kind of fun to use. Right. So rather than this new business application that's going to track my performance, this was all about, hey, I get to earn points and I can win a prize. And it completely changed the way people felt about labor.
When you were giving that example, I kind of thought about drive-throughs. Right? Because organizations with drive-thrus really challenge their employees with how fast can we get them through.
Right. Yep.
It's all about timing.
Right.
And so you can sort of see how the same thing can be applied to warehousing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the fundamental driver here is productivity. It always has been, and it always will be, right? We want our employees to be productive. We want them to be safe, though, as well, and we also want them to make sure that what they're doing is accurate, so we have accurate orders. So all of that, none of that's changed. Just the way we drive people towards that has changed radically in the last, say, 5 years.
So talk to us about how gamification aligns with those broader business strategies. I think, when we think about the labor force, when we think about our teams and making it fun, I really love that aspect of it. But what about, succession planning? What about moving through the organization? Does it help with that and help align with that?
I think it does, because, within supply chain in particular, and I tell, friends this all the time, sometimes I think warehousing is viewed as sort of a bad place to go work, but really, it's a place that you can start at the ground floor. I mean, I know multiple executives in supply chain who started in the warehouse.
I started as reception, just going to put it out there.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's not a bad place to start. And if you are smart, and if you can, learn the operation and learn how things are done, you can become a supervisor and manager and facility manager. And I mean, the sky's the limit. It is one of those areas where, education and things like that, I mean, clearly that's very important, but it's not the single thing that they're looking at. I think within the operations area, you have to know how things work. That's fundamental to doing the job. So I think that, this helps companies to retain employees. It helps employees to want to stay and move up the chain. And so I think that's sort of the role that it plays.
So then how are some of your customers, you've already given us one really great example around the beauty industry, but do you have another use case that you can share with us on how they're applying gamification successfully in their warehouses?
Yeah, the answer is yes. We have actually multiple use cases, but I think the two, the one is the cosmetics company who ran the game, right? And their idea is that they will run that game 2-3 times a year, right? Now we have another customer, a large pet supply retailer, and they use gamification on an ongoing basis, right? Okay. So they have challenges for performance, for utilization, for absences. And those challenges are just always out there. And actually, we have a panel here at Momentum. We're going to have 2 people from both those companies talking and contrasting their approaches. So one is a game, the other one is sort of an ongoing program. Now, the pet supply retailer who is doing this in an ongoing basis also has an incentive program. So they pay incentives. And one of the big benefits that they saw from this is that their employees want to make their incentive, right? Mm-hmm. You start to have that, you become dependent on it, and you want to make sure you're going to get that check at the end of the month. So they like to be able to look at their dashboards. They like to be able to see how they're doing on their challenges. They like to see how many points they have earned, because that gives them the assurance that, yep, I'm on track to get my incentive at the end of the month.
Right.
So they offer it on an ongoing basis, and it provides the visibility that their employees need to drive towards that incentive. Now, with this company, I think what's important is that this is a company who had paid incentives, engineering labor standards, is a longtime user of labor. They migrated from our old SCPP version to our active version. So they're really a pro in terms of using labor. And so with all of that, when they layered employee engagement on top of that, they saw another 5% incremental increase in productivity.
Wow.
So, the question we always get asked is, well, what's the ROI from employee engagement? And, we're still trying to figure that out a little bit, but I think that's a great example of a company that has seen incremental on top of everything else that they were doing. So I think that's a good sign for employee engagement.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm excited I need gamification in my life, I think.
We all do.
And I'm really excited about what it does for supply chain teams, warehousing teams, to get excited about what they do on a daily basis. I think that's really going to drive where we can go in supply chain, what we can do for not only our organizations, but also our customers as well, those consumers. And everybody wins at that point. So Peter, you've given us a lot to think about, some really great case studies. Thank you so much for joining me here today.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah.